Don't look at the sun. You'll go blind. Don't stare at your phone. Don't look at lasers. That's the kind of stuff my mom used to tell me when I was a kid. And honestly, I always listened. But what would actually happen if you did look at the sun? How fast would you go blind or worse? I got curious and went down a rabbit hole online. I found a ton of stuff, some of it total nonsense, but some of it actually surprising. So let's break it all down, starting with optical illusions and working our way up to a nuclear explosion. I split everything into 3 levels. Level 1, myths. Level 2, real damage. Level 3, things that will actually blind you for good. I promise, it's gonna be really interesting, so don't forget to subscribe. The first thing I found online was videos like this. This video will make you blind for 5 seconds. Let's test it.
Don't blink. Keep staring at the wild dot at the center of the screen. Try to not blink until I change the image to a black and white one. Then you will see this awesome trick. Okay. Now, I changed the image to a black and white one.
If you can still see me, yeah, it didn't work. These are just optical illusions. There are tons of them. Here are a few more. Cool? Sure. But they do absolutely nothing to your eyesight. It's just your brain getting tricked by contrast and color patterns. Your brain misreads the signal, and the image looks like it's moving, warping, or leaving a trail. And honestly, this is a great place to start, because it immediately shows the biggest problem with this whole topic. You can't always trust what your eyes tell you. We'll come back to that. Next, I found a video comparing different things and how fast each one blinds you. Take a look. Now this, in my opinion, is way off and pretty much total nonsense. The problem with those cards is that they create a fake picture of how this all works. They make it seem like every light source works the same way. It's just a matter of how long until you go blind, but in reality, different things damage your eyes in completely different ways. Let me go through them one by one, starting with the least dangerous and ending with the ones you really, truly should never look at. First up, a candle. The card says staring at a candle will blind you in 7 days. And weirdly, that almost sounds logical. Like, weak light source just takes longer, right? But here's the thing, a candle gives off soft, scattered light. It cannot damage your retina no matter how long you stare at it. The worst you get is some eye strain. That's it. Next, a TV screen. The card says staring at it up close will blind you in 2 days. I thought that was ridiculous, and you probably did too. But when I looked into it more, screens are actually kind of a problem. Not you'll go blind level. We're still in level 1. But there are real effects. Let me take a second to explain why your parents aren't totally wrong when they tell you to get off TikTok or stop playing Fortnite. Here's something you've probably never thought about. How often do you blink? Turns out, when we stare at a screen, we're so focused that we naturally blink way less than normal. That means your eyes get dry, and you get something called computer vision syndrome, a burning, gritty, and sand in your eyes feeling. Screens also emit a lot of blue light, which mimics daylight. When your brain sees that, it thinks it's daytime, so it's harder to fall asleep. In one study, people who read on a screen for several evenings before bed produced about 55% less melatonin, the sleep hormone, than people who read a regular paper book. And you know that feeling when text starts blurring after a long day? That's not just screens, it's hours of focusing up close. The more you do that, the higher your risk of nearsightedness, especially when you're young. So yeah, staring at screens is genuinely not great for your eyes, but you will not go blind from it, no matter how long you watch. And now the peak of level 1, the phone flashlight. The card says staring at it will blind you in 18 hours. This one actually sounds more believable, right? Because everyone's had a flash go off in their face and seen those bright spots afterward. What causes those spots? Your photoreceptors, the cells in your eye that detect light, briefly get overloaded, and your brain needs a moment to rebuild a clear picture. But what if you actually sat and stared at a phone flash for hours? You'd get burning, dryness, blurry vision, maybe a headache. Keep going, and your retina starts to get more seriously overloaded. Vision gets hazy. You become more sensitive to light. Those effects could stick around longer than a few minutes, but in most cases, it's still reversible. It could cause some complications, but not blindness. Now, we're into level 2, things that can do real damage. First up, car headlights. The card says staring at headlights from 1 inch away will blind you in 3 minutes. I was almost ready to believe it, because honestly, driving at night and getting blasted by oncoming headlights is genuinely rough, especially when someone swapped out their factory lights for aftermarket ones, with no light regulation built in. And if someone hits you with high beams, that's no joke. At highway speed, even a couple seconds of blindness is enough to cause a crash. There are real accidents caused by exactly this kind of temporary flash blindness. If it happens to you, the advice is turn on your hazard lights and pull over until your vision comes back. So, dangerous, yes, but temporary. What if you actually stared at headlights from 1 inch away for 3 minutes? Weirdly, the effect is kind of similar to the phone flash, really unpleasant. And if you pushed through it long enough, you could theoretically stress your retina, but you still wouldn't go permanently blind. Next, UV, ultraviolet lamps. The card claims that if you're in a tanning bed without goggles, you'll go blind in 2 hours. I honestly didn't buy that at first, but it turns out even a basic UV lamp can literally burn your cornea, the clear surface of your eye. And here's the scary part, you might not feel anything while it's happening. This is a completely different type of danger. UV light doesn't look super intense. There's no, whoa, that's insanely bright sensation, but the tissue is already getting damaged. This is called photokeratitis, basically a sunburn on your eye. You feel totally fine while it's happening. Then a few hours later it hits. Your eyes start hurting, tearing up, and suddenly even normal light feels too harsh. The FDA has specifically warned about unsafe UVC wand devices that can injure eyes and skin when used incorrectly. Verdict: minutes of exposure equals a corneal burn. Pain sets in hours later, and your vision definitely takes a hit. But UV lamps are nothing compared to the sun. The sun is the boss of level 2. The card says you'll go blind in just 2 minutes. So what's actually true? On a clear day, the sun is up to 5,000 times brighter than a standard light bulb. Looking at it can do serious damage. There's a famous story about Isaac Newton. He once decided to study the sun by staring at its reflection in a mirror. And not just casually. He'd been sitting in a dark room beforehand, so his pupils were fully dilated, letting in as much light as possible. He literally set up his own eye for maximum sun exposure. He got so absorbed in it that he ended up with photochemical damage to his retina. He didn't realize it right away, but for months afterward, he kept seeing flashes and phantoms of light and color. Even a quick glance at the sun will give you after images, those white spots that float around after you look at a bright light. But here's an important distinction. After images and actual retinal damage are 2 different things. A brief flash just overloads your photoreceptors temporarily, but if you look longer, you start breaking down the actual cells and proteins your retina uses to process light. And the retina isn't the surface of your eye, it's the part that actually converts light into images. So when it gets damaged, you're damaging the core machinery of your vision. The really unsettling part? The retina has no pain receptors. The American Academy of Ophthalmology points this out directly. You can be seriously burning your retina and feel no pain in the moment. You'll only notice something's wrong later. That's what makes the sun so much more dangerous than it feels. Verdict: seconds equals risk of damage. Minutes equals potentially a permanent blind spot in the center of your vision. While I was going down the sun rabbit hole, I found a couple of things that weren't on those cards that are also worth knowing. First, solar eclipses. These are sneaky. The moon is blocking the sun, so it seems safe to look, no squinting needed. But because you're not squinting, your eyes are wide open, and way more UV radiation hits your retina, doing more damage than you'd expect. It's only safe to look without protection during totality, when the sun is 100% covered. The problem is, that window is very easy to miss, which is why doctors usually say just keep your eclipse glasses on the whole time. And not just any sunglasses. They need to be certified eclipse glasses, with ISO markings and no scratches or damage to the lenses. Verdict: deceptively safe looking. A few dozen seconds can damage your vision. Here's something paradoxically dangerous. It can hurt your eyes, even when you're not looking at the sun directly. The cards mention that spending 10 months on Mount Everest could blind you. I'm pretty skeptical of that specific claim, but if you've ever been somewhere snowy or near a beach on a sunny day, you know how brutally bright the reflection can be. Your brain tends to treat reflected light as a softer, safer version of the sun, but for your eyes, reflected UV is still UV. Hours of exposure to that reflected light can burn your cornea, just like a UV lamp. Especially in the mountains, where the thinner atmosphere filters out less radiation. You won't go blind, but you can genuinely hurt yourself. Another point on the sun's danger scorecard. Level 3 is where things get actually dangerous. These are the things that can take your vision permanently. First, lasers. They weren't on the original cards, but we've all played with laser pointers and heard the warnings about shining them at airplanes. Here's how a laser actually works. Light bounces back and forth between mirrors inside the device, getting focused into a tight, concentrated beam. It's the most focused form of energy you can shoot out of a handheld device. When that beam hits your eye, it can literally burn a hole in your retina. There are photos of exactly this happening. You'd permanently lose vision right in the center of your sight. When light energy hits tissue, that tissue has to absorb it, and it heats up and gets destroyed. The FDA has stated that the energy from a laser pointer aimed at your eye can be more damaging than looking directly at the sun. As for the airplane thing, it's partly a myth. Shining a laser at a plane can seriously mess with a pilot. This is not rare. The FAA recorded 12,840 laser incidents in 2024 and 10,993 in 2025, calling these a serious aviation safety threat. The real danger for pilots isn't permanent blindness. It's blind spots and disorientation at a critical moment, especially at night during landing. Permanent eye damage in pilots is unlikely in most cases because the distances are large, energy gets lost in the atmosphere, and the blink reflex kicks in. But it has happened. There's a documented case from 2016 of a commercial pilot suffering retinal damage from a high-powered blue laser during flight. Researchers noted it was likely caused by a multi-watt laser, not a standard office pointer. So yes, lasers are genuinely dangerous. And, funnily enough, that same property is what makes them medically useful. Lasers are used in eye surgery, correcting the cornea, stopping retinal bleeds, treating certain types of glaucoma. They deliver energy to a precise tiny area, which can heal or destroy, depending on how it's used. Verdict: fractions of a second. Damage can be instantaneous. Now back to the sun, with a very dangerous twist. The cards mentioned 1.2 minutes through a telescope and 38 seconds through a magnifying glass. Sounds almost chill. But the situation here is very close to the laser scenario. The lens focuses the beam to a point directly on your eye. This isn't theoretical. One astronomer pointed a telescope at the sun and placed a pig's eye behind the eyepiece. Pig eyes are often used as a model for human eyes in a research. In about 20 seconds, the focused sunlight simply burned through the tissue, like using a magnifying glass to burn paper, except the paper is your retina. And remember, the retina can't feel pain. You can badly damage your retina without feeling anything in the moment. The result only becomes clear afterward, and sometimes it's irreversible. Completely different category of risk. Cards say an industrial cutting laser will blind you in 0.1 seconds. This is a whole different level of danger. Fractions of a second of exposure can damage your vision. That's why industrial laser equipment is always sealed in protective enclosures with strict safety protocols. Same principle as a regular laser, concentrated energy in one point, but the power is on a completely different scale. The tissue overheats and is physically destroyed at a microscopic level. It's direct damage to the part of your eye that handles vision. The classic scenario. Someone briefly catches the beam or a reflection, and immediately there's a blind spot that never goes away. Verdict: fractions of a second of exposure, and you may have permanent damage that doesn't heal. And finally, the thing that will blind you instantly: a nuclear explosion. Right? Well, actually, not as straightforwardly as you might think. Weirdly, the cards say it takes 2.8 seconds from 1 mile away, which is actually longer than the 0.1 seconds from an industrial laser. It all depends on distance. Looking directly at a nuclear flash can cause anything from temporary flash blindness to severe retinal burns. The issue is extreme brightness, not radiation. You don't even need to stare. The sheer intensity of the light pulse is enough. Your eye has no time to adapt, no time to protect itself. Whether the damage is permanent depends on the distance, the power of the explosion, and how directly you are looking. The more direct your gaze and the more intense the flash, the higher the chance of permanent blindness. And if you're at the epicenter, you will go blind. But there won't be much left of you anyway. Cheery ending, right? What I found most interesting is this: not everything dangerous looks dangerous. That's exactly why the old saying, "Don't look at the sun," was never just a scare tactic. Your eyes are surprisingly easy to fool, and they can't always warn you that you've already gone too far. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.